Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have just Kelly away today. She's on holidays, so I'd like to have her excuse, please. Trace moves. All in favor? Thank you. We have some unknown visitors. Does anybody not know the Chandlers? You know most of us. Okay, we won't go through introductions. And welcome. Thanks for coming. The minutes for our last meeting, June 20th, have been circulated. Molly moves as circulated. Any discussion? Any corrections? All in favor? That's passed. Any post-agenda items? Seeing none, can we have adoption of the agenda? UB moves. All in favor? That is passed. We have a development report with quite a few items on it. Are there any questions for that? Yes, Anne-Marie.
There is a home occupation 1, and I'm just wondering what that is.
The home occupation is for online sales. So Mrs. Vanderlind has limited stock in her basement. People order online. She takes the product to the post office and mails it. So there's no traffic at her house.
Anything else, Anne-Marie? That's it? Okay. Yes, Trace?
That's under the when Morash enforcement existing. What is that?
They built a barn with a suite above the barn, like a living quarters, and they didn't get a permit for it. So that's what that one is.
Anything else? Okay, we'll accept it as information. Thank you. Subdivisions. We have one. Diane.
Good morning. This morning's is 2019-0-089, and it does look kind of familiar because we've been dealing with this one on a road closure issue. But the purpose of this is to create one new parcel of about 118 acres by subdividing and consolidating portions of 4 existing parcels and the adjacent road allowance, which is to be closed. That is fragmented by Highway 875. They're all in Division 1, 6 miles south of the hamlet of Rolling Hills, and immediately adjacent to the highway and the Bow River. So it's proposed that about a 2-acre portion of the northwest of 61413, a 74-acre portion of existing Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 0310532, and a 35-acre portion of the northwest of 311313, all be subdivided and consolidated. In addition, there's a cutoff portion. As you can see, that's that little gray piece of approximately 87.87 acres, so less than an acre, that we want consolidated as well. So again, the portions of the road allowance are required to be closed through that road closure process prior to this consolidation finalization of this subdivision. And again, remembering that this was a historic transfer with the realignment of the 875 back in the 50s or 60s. So with that, we have looked at the abandoned well information for these lands, and there are none. The wetland inventory indicates there's nothing there. And finally, what became interesting on this one, and this is one of the first ones we've run into since the new bulletin had come out, is there are historic resource values on these lands of 4s and 5s. And there was a bulletin, I won't bore you with everything, but as of January 22nd, 2019, there is a new clearance requirement through Alberta Culture and Tourism. So anyone that has these HRV sites, if they're not cleared through the subdivision process, they will have to submit online and get a clearance. And there's a $500 fee that the government has attached to that. So just as a heads up that if anyone complains about that one, that isn't us, that's the government. But with this particular case, you'll see that we did get comments from Alberta Culture, and they've waived that requirement. So that all worked out in this case, but just so you know, in others of municipalities, they haven't done that, and they've had to go through the permitting requirements and clearance situation. So just another process that we have to be aware of. So again, through the referral process, this does lie within the intermunicipal plan boundary with the municipal district of Tabor. So they did review this, and they have no comments or concerns with this proposal. TELUS has no objections to the circulation. Fortis, again, reviewed it and has no requirements for easements at this location. Alberta Transportation has provided their regular big, long letter, but they have dealt with, sort of halfway down through their letter, consideration of future access pending the road closure and those types of things. So there will need to be some easements established as part of that road closure to allow for access to some of the Eastern Irrigation District lands to the west of the road closure. So we're not dealing with that in the subdivision. We're going to kind of wrap it into the road closure portion of that. And finally, on your very last page of it, there's our comment from Historic Resources, Barry Newton. So again, they reviewed the subdivision application and have determined there are no historic resource concerns with the proposal despite the HRV 4 and 5 rating. So I did call him to confirm that that email saved everybody $500, and he confirmed that, so that's good news. And that was passed on to the surveyor. So I am recommending approval of the subdivision with 2 conditions. 1, outstanding property taxes be paid, and then the consolidation with all those subdivided portions, the little cutoff fragment, as well as the proposed closed roads. I don't know if there's any questions on this.
So we can actually make it part of the subdivision before we officially close those roads?
Correct, because it's a tentative approval. So the final approval comes when all the conditions are met. In order for them to be able to consolidate, including those portions that are included as part of the subdivision, they'll have to finish that road closure process. So it's kind of separate processes. So again, if somehow something went sideways on the road closure, we wouldn't allow them to subdivide, so it's all tied together. But yes, you can put the tentative approval in place and let them move forward to work towards that other process.
Any other questions? Could we have a motion? Lionel? Lionel moves as recommended. Any further questions? All in favor? Okay, that is passed. Development permits.
Development permit 2019032 is the application for an existing beekeeping operation and 2 accessory buildings in the hamlet of Scandia. There was a development permit in 1984 that was issued for 1 building. There was a development permit in 2002 that was issued for 3 additional buildings. The development was brought to the attention of the Planning and Development Department when the county assessor was out there and there was an addition to the warehouse. It was then discovered that there was no development permit for the warehouse shop and the operation of the business. The site coverage is 26%. The maximum height for the principal building in a hamlet business zoning is 36 feet. The applicant is requesting a variance to construct his building to 39 feet. The variance is to accommodate stainless steel honey mixing tanks. The applicant will enter into an encroachment agreement with the county annual for the setback to the southwest. There was no issues or concerns from staff. There was no response from adjacent landowners. We are recommending approval with conditions, and the owners, applicants, are here to answer any questions. Mr. and Mrs. Chandler.
We have questions or not? Well, Molly's trying to get up some hard questions for you.
Oh, okay.
And you have, Brian, that's that one.
Yes. Well, my question isn't for you, Reese. It's for our planning department. And I'm curious what the what the ramifications are if you proceed without a development permit. What's our bylaws tell us?
And I guess I should have just deferred to Lane on this one, because that would be part of your fee schedule, and I'm not sure if we have a penalty or not, or if it's, some municipalities have a separate penalty schedule for those that sort of ask for forgiveness rather than permission. But again, I'm not sure what our current bylaw says.
Yeah, as far as the fee goes, it's double the application rate if the development has started before the approval has been given. If I understand the question, though, you're probably asking whether or not there is problems with development proceeding and what measures can be taken if, in fact, a development doesn't comply with the bylaws.
No, I'm aware that we can force somebody to take it down, but that's not what I'm insinuating here. I agree with this development. I'm just curious about the penalties, as you indicated with your, what they are double, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything to add, Reese?
I don't know if I wrote it in my application, but the reason for the addition is, I don't know if you know, but the states have a new administration down there. Anyways, we've been sending 90% of our honey down there, and we thought, well, look at maybe Japan, and Japan has been hounding us for honey. So yeah, we put out the word, and we had companies from Japan right away wanting to send honey. So yeah, so it's yeah, exciting. Yeah.
That is exciting. You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
So with these tanks, we'll be able to, well, we have another 2 companies coming in 2 weeks. Yeah, it just spreads our markets. It's going to be great.
Okay. No other questions? Yes. Molly.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Wayne? Wayne moves to approve as recommended. Any other questions? All in favor?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you very much.
No post-agenda items, nothing in camera. We have some information items. Any comments or questions on those two? I'm not sure what changing from roller compacted concrete to just concrete means, but obviously it's not a whole lot of difference. Stronger? Okay. Seeing no questions or volunteered information, question period. Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
We're just going to do the two first readings for the minutes. Yeah.
Do you have time to meet with Estelle today too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah. I got the whole afternoon booked for you guys, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be all afternoon.
Meeting going. All right, we'll call the council meeting to order, please. And we need a motion to excuse Kelly. Ellen will move. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. The minutes of July 11th for adoption. Were there any changes or corrections? Otherwise, Clarence will move.
Yep.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Post-agenda items. Are there any post-agenda items? Anne-Marie?
I was wondering if you could give us an update, or Kevin, on Alberta Transportation and Highway 1. The conversations that have been going on.
And JBS? Oh, okay. Yep. Jeff probably could do an even better job. Anything else? If not, we have an adoption of the agenda. Anne-Marie will move that also. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. There are no public here for questions. Notice of motion, so we'll move to, excuse me, we're going to skip over the public hearings, obviously, for 11:30 and go to bylaw, the first reading. Diane.
Great, thank you. We've got two first readings this morning. So the first one is Bylaw 1954-19. The purpose of this application is to redesignate approximately 6.6 acres parcel along the 542 from acreage residential to the single lot agricultural district in order to accommodate the approval of an existing greenhouse operation. We do have some development on site at this point. The parcel was rezoned to acreage residential in 2007. The applicant wishes to develop the greenhouse garden site on site, and the current zoning doesn't allow for that. So due to the previous subdivision, the quarter section, and the applicant's desire to perhaps at some point in the future construct or move in a dwelling on the site, we determined that single lot would be the most appropriate zoning to accommodate the future uses. So again, as this is adjacent to the highway, the applicant has been working with Alberta Transportation regarding setbacks as well as access to the parcel. So we're recommending that council provide first reading to this bylaw to get it into the public process, and we'll schedule a public hearing for next month. If there's any questions.
Diane. Questions for Diane? If not, we need a motion to move forward. Tracy, for first reading, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Continuing on.
Great. Our second one is 1955-19. Again, the purpose of this application is to redesignate approximately 29.2 acres of an existing quarter section of about 159 acres from ag to the small holdings district in order to accommodate a future subdivision of an existing yard site and additional agricultural land. Again, the only land use district that can accommodate these smaller agricultural parcels is the small holding district. And this district allows for parcels between the 7 acres and 40 acres. So again, would ask that council provide first reading to this bylaw to get it into the public realm, and a public hearing be scheduled for the first meeting in August.
Brian?
Well, because it's small holdings and the last time that we had one of these that sort of didn't fit the yard site, I'm going to say. I'm just curious about where's the process and what part of the process that we have to deal with this, whether we're for or against it, because I know I missed the boat last time. I know first reading is just that, it puts it into the process for the review, but yeah, anyways, that's my concern here, is that the parcel doesn't really fit the yard site. It's taking more land than at least in my view, seems necessary, but I need that information prior to us going to that same point where we have issues, and then it's like, well, we've already gone through the public hearing process, so you should have dealt with it prior. So I'm curious about that.
Great. With the process with this, as you know, this is, as a bylaw amendment, is 3 readings of council and a public hearing. So when you take information on at the public hearing, that's when, if you hear anything for or against, or you wish to put something forward, that's the realm in which it should be done. And then prior to second and third reading is when council debates the merits of the bylaw. And at that point is where you discuss, is this appropriate? Do we want it smaller? Do we want it larger? Do we want to even approve it? So again, that would be the time that the debate on whether or not the proposal as suggested would be appropriate, and everyone on council supported it. So at this point, it's just getting it into the process. We don't want to indicate that we wouldn't give them first reading, because again, that just gets us into the process. You don't want to be biased before you even give them a chance for the public hearing and to provide that information from adjacent landowners and from any referral agencies that could, again, factor into the decision that's being made. So I would say that the appropriate part to be debating whether or not you like the proposal is after the public hearing.
Any other questions for Diane? If not, a motion. Brian will move first reading. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. You know what? Because this could be the last need for the planning people to be in the room, we'll move to 11.1, the Planning and Development Report, in case we have some really hard questions for Maria. or if there's anything Maria would like to highlight in her report. Totally.
All right, getting it all figured out. So this is my planning and development report. It's a little bit different than what you've seen in the past, but similar. So I thought that I would start with this, and then if you have anything that you'd like to see in here or anything that you don't care about that I could take out, I'm open to all suggestions, so just let me know. Hopefully, as I get more familiar with what's happening in the department, I can add some fun and exciting things in here. Jeff and I have talked about maybe collaborating with engineering, and we could do something with building permits and rural water use, or, you know, we're going to try to get some more information, useful information through in this report. So it is what it is now, and I'm open to suggestions.
Fun and exciting things in a planning and development report. I am so impressed and looking forward to it. Great. Brian.
Just one question, and I know you probably don't have the update, but for Jeff, for you, Maria, like with the North Head Gates, based on when you submitted the application for the Water Act, when do you anticipate an answer or a response from the department?
Well, we submitted it in the late March timeframe, I believe. I can't remember the date exactly. The new one-stop system that is in use right now for the submissions is actually quite useful, because you can log in and you can actually see updates and track the status of your application to a degree. I mean, not, you know, finite details, but it has moved from the preliminary review to the full-blown technical review now, so that's positive that there is motion and something happening there. I would really love to see a response and approval come in, you know, prior to Christmas here sometime, so we could get rolling and start some of the other work, maybe tender preparation and whatnot over the winter, and have something ready for early spring. But you know, 12 to 18 months was what we were told, so could be next March, could be next September. But, you know, based on the Water Act approval we submitted for Highway 876, while it was much less detailed and we were causing much less disturbance to the wetland areas or whatnot, it came back in just under 7 months. So that's, I guess, some good news.
Any other questions? If not, can we have a approval of acceptance of that report, please, from somebody? Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Maria and Jeff and Diane. And public hearings at 11:30. Jeff? Oh, okay. Sorry. No, that's good. 11:2, right? Right after that. Approval to proceed.
Okay, so we were approached by a landowner who would like to close this portion of the road and lease it. Right now, he is farming it as part of his adjacent lands, and there is a road built on the west side of the road allowance, but it's entirely in his property. So we would like direction from council if you're okay with closing and leasing this portion. We did a internal circulation, and no one had any comments or concerns, and I also spoke to Alberta Transportation, and they don't have any concerns with this closure either. And access to any of the adjacent lands isn't in jeopardy by closing this.
Questions? Ellen?
So the red line has already an existing road, or is it moved to the west more, did you say?
The red line is just showing where the road allowance is. And if you can see on the east side of that red line is the existing road. So you can see that the road is not built on the road allowance. Yeah. Right, sorry, and it is not a county road. It's a private road built by the landowner. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Questions? This would be close and lease? Yeah. Okay. No other questions or concerns to proceed with this application? Doesn't look as though anybody has a lot of concern about it, so sounds like you're safe to carry on. Thank you. Jeff, do you have any reason to be back later in this meeting? I just wondered if we could just sort of be really random abstract and talk about Anne-Marie's question while you're here, because I have been involved, but Jeff has been more involved with Highway number 1 and JBS Intersection. So Jeff, if you can just get a little update would be great.
Sure. So as everybody's aware, this is, well, or maybe not everybody's aware, but this is something that stems back to, well, quite some time. We spoke about it with Darren at last fall convention and talked about what could be done. They indicated that Alberta Transportation had hired ISL Engineering to carry out a report on the intersection of 15-0 and Highway 1, which is also the JBS access. They carried out that report. They sent us the report early in the new year for review. We reviewed it. We had planned to meet with transportation, and then there was a shutdown of sorts where we were unable to meet with them. Following the election, we did get the chance to sit down and meet with Jerry Lau from Alberta Transportation and discuss the report. We looked at it. There's a lot of different options recommended, varying costs on all of them. You know, a flyover being the ultimate solution, but obviously the ultimate cost as well. And anything to split T intersections, total removal of the intersections and access to Highway 1. A lot of different options were looked at. In discussions with transportation, Jerry's comments were that, you know, the removal of the access and the median in the center of Highway 1 is obviously the safest solution. We all know that. But again, we need to consider JBS's operational logistics and how their business would carry on with something like, if something like that were to occur. So we discussed that with transportation, and then about a week and a half ago, we met with JBS out at the plant, and we got Jerry on conference call on the phone. Discussed the possibility of removing the center median in Highway 1 at the JBS plant, so there would be no through traffic crossing the center median anymore. We talked about leaving a right in and right out on both of the JBS access as well as Range Road 15-0 access. So that would mean westbound vehicles could access JBS, and leaving the JBS plant, you would be able to head westbound. That would also mean, again, at the feedlot, eastbound vehicles would be able to access the feedlot, whereas westbound vehicles wouldn't be able to. And leaving the feedlot, you would have to go eastbound. So where it's at right now, we discussed it with JBS. They obviously need to run it by their senior management team. I did up some maps and got them off to Celio and German and Alan at JBS. And right now we are kind of in limbo, just waiting to hear back from JBS on what their thoughts and views are from their senior management team on how this might affect their operations. That's where we sit. We did have some discussion as well as different options to promote or force the utilization of Gun Club Road as opposed to Highway 1 with employee traffic at JBS. So there's definitely still some discussions to be had with that regard, but the main thing is waiting for JBS's response on what kind of impact that would have on their business operations to remove that center median.
We also mentioned reducing the speed limit and maybe flashing lights. Was that discussed again?
Flashing lights were definitely in the report and discussed to a very small degree. That there's multiple flashing light scenarios. One is for fog, where in foggy situations the lights would flash. The thing about that is in the report, and albeit there was an incident, I believe last winter, that fog was a contributing cause, but in the report there was 0 incidents that had fog as a contributing factor or lack of visibility for that matter. So that wasn't much of an option. And again, the major cost to that is, I think, against the go-forward plan of what the ultimate solution is. The removal of that center median is just such a cost-effective solution to remove that, to engineer out that hazard, that I don't believe that there's much buy-in to install lights. The other scenario for flashing lights would be, there would be a sensor at the stop bar, which was in the report, that the lights would be flashing anytime somebody was parked at that stop bar. Now that's a tough one too. How far back do the lights go? Is somebody parked there? Did they just arrive there? Did they even stop at the stop bar? So there's just too many unknowns and uncertainties with the flashing light scenario. Speed reduction is definitely a topic of conversation. There wasn't much want from the group at the table for a speed reduction at the last meeting we had out at JBS and spoke with transportation, but it's definitely still a legitimate option.
Clarence?
So if you close the median, what do you do with westbound traffic going into the feedlot, and what do you do with eastbound traffic going to the plant? And where do the problems move to?
And that was a big topic of conversation. That's actually why I did up some maps for JBS to take a look at how that would affect their operations in difference in haul routes and whatnot for their trucks going to and from the feedlot. And they also have a contractor that washes their liners out on the south side of the highway. So that was a pretty large concern for them as well. The westbound trucks going to the feedlot would take a couple of options. They could get off in Brooks at 2nd Street, go south, go out Jelland Trucking Road and take that direction. There is the option to continue past and go to Highway 36 and make a left-hand turn, knowing that that's another very heavily traveled, busy intersection. As for eastbound vehicles going to the plant, they would be required to come to the 873 and hit Gun Club and come back. The additional haul distances that I identified to JBS were, roughly around that 10-11 kilometers additional haul distance with those alternate routes.
I agree with Clarence. I think, in my opinion, you're just moving an issue down to other points, conflict points. I mean, we've talked already about 15th Street, and so you add more traffic to that. And what my question is more in regards to is enforcement, traffic enforcement. And do we have an option to, and I'm sure they're aware of it, like I'm not trying to assume the RCMP or our bylaw people aren't aware of this. But I guess what comes to mind is when I go to Calgary now, and I'm sure we all do, you go past Chestermere, what happens? You have to go down 80 clicks. And for the 2 years that it was that when they started that, there was if you didn't see an RCMP out having somebody stop, you seen them on a corner. And guess what? Everybody that I know that goes through that speed trap, or whatever you want to call it, is down to 80 clicks. It's almost, you won't find anybody that's not driving 80 clicks unless they're really consciously not wanting to. So it leads me to believe if we had, is it possible to engage RCMP and ask them for more enforcement on that intersection so that people become aware that there could be ramifications if you're not obeying the traffic laws in that area, because honestly, I go past that intersection way more than I go through Chestermere, and there's a lot more infractions. I challenge anybody that goes through there to not have an incident where they've seen somebody or somebody doing something that could cause a fatality.
Enforcement was definitely another topic of discussion we discussed at JBS with JBS and Alberta Transportation. I do think and totally agree with you that area where the speed reduction has happened in Chestermere has got people thinking, especially when there's an RCMP vehicle parked there about 22 hours a day. Enforcement is great, and I do believe that it would help the situation. The issue sometimes with enforcement is when it's there, it works, but all of a sudden when it goes away, it stops working again. I do believe that a request for enforcement could be made. I do believe that it would, it gives people that sense that, wow, somebody's here, now they're watching, and to do that, to make that full stop is going to make a world of difference out there. What it won't do is help the configuration of the intersection. There is one of the major factors that contributes to the incidents there is stacking at the intersection and side-by-side vehicles and poor sight lines. So the one thing the enforcement won't help is that, unfortunately, but I do think it will definitely help driver habit and driver behavior.
Other things for Jeff? That meeting that we had was on June 28th, Friday, June 28th, and JBS are certainly open to whatever can be done, and I thought they were very open about looking at the traffic flows, which obviously has huge impact on their business. They realize that. But they weren't going to just say no right off the bat either. So they're looking at it, as Jeff said. So we'll continue to work on it. Thanks for asking, Anne-Marie, and thank you, Jeff, that was on the spur of the moment, so appreciated it. Thank you. And we'll move to Ag Service Board, and thank you, Will, for your patience. Item 10. How's summer, Will? Busy?
It's going good, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I get to fill in for Todd today, so I don't know if I can fill his boots or not, but we'll try. I won't tell him you said that. So anyways, our roadside mowing program, I'll start with that. We did get started a little bit later this year because of the dry spring. But they're moving right along now, so we've pretty much got the north side of the number one done as of today. Our two new guys, they're fitting in really well and doing a good job. We'll probably slow down a little bit now. We've got some moisture, there's some grass, except maybe in the Rainier Bow City area. I think some of that got trimmed for us already. So being that we started a little later, we did have another project to fill in. Gopher control. Grasslands got the county to do some gopher control at some of their schools. Rolling Hills, Alcoma, Dutchess, Uplands. The town of Dutchess had us come in and do some gopher control, and also Smith Group. They have some land right by Dutchess there that we did some work there. So that was 10 days of control that we did. So that filled in some time for us. Our roadside spraying program. So we've got all of our Volker roads sprayed south of the number 1. Rolling Hills Highway, there was some haying going on there, so we got to wait for some regrowth. The Lake Newell Road here, the new pavement, we tried a new chemical on there this year that will work for grass seedlings. So it's a reduced rate, and hopefully, so we did spray it already. It looks like we're getting good control on the weeds. We'll have to give it a little bit of time to see what it's done to our grass seedlings if they're going to survive that. I'm sure it's going to be fine. So at least that's something on our shoulder pole roads. Now we'll be able to spray that previous year after we've seeded, where in the past we haven't been able to because running the risk of killing the grass that we've seeded. Riverwalk. So we have a crew of 5 going down there. River is running pretty high, but they're not really finding a bunch of chamomiles, so they're moving right along. They are spraying any other weeds that they find, the tansy, toadflax, henbane. So strychnine sales are starting to wind down, but yeah, it's been a crazy year for strychnine. Those gophers this year were something else. And a couple of producers in the county have got to the point where they were using phostoxin for gopher control. And they seem to have good results with it. So it is on the label that you can use phostoxin for gopher control. So, yeah, that's all I came up with for you guys. So if you have any questions for me, I will be happy to answer if I can.
How do I catch that gopher I have on my deck?
On your deck? It's getting to the time of year where, yeah, your strychnine doesn't work very good anymore. About the only thing you can do is trap them. Try to trap them. Or a pellet gun.
Yeah. Be a good shot to do that.
Yeah.
Have we got any traps at all at the county?
Not for gophers, just the magpie and skunk traps. Yeah.
The chemical you mentioned that you're using on the roadside, what is that?
It's called octane. Yes, I believe, yes, octane, that's what it is. So I can't tell you what's in it right now. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But
is it available for farmers to use too? Or?
I think it's an industrial label on there. I'd have to check into it more. It's a new product for us, so I'm not too familiar with it. And but I can get that information for you, Brian.
Well, I can check it out too, as long as I know a name. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Comment on your roadside mowing.
Yes.
I thought they did a particularly good job this year. I don't know whether that was better equipment or better operator or what to attribute that to, but they did a real bang-up job that I saw around our area.
That's good to hear. So, yeah.
And speaking of mowing, I was thrilled last night to see Volker Steven out on some of the highways, secondaries, out in our part of the country, because it just makes things so much safer with deer.
Yes, absolutely.
Unbelievable difference at night. Like, it's scary driving, especially at that dusk time of night these days.
And all them weeds look like antlers.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
So if you have any contact with the Volker folks, like it seems to be a lot earlier than usual that they're out.
It's earlier than last year, that's for sure, yes.
So that's good news. Tracy?
I just wanted to give... I'm too loud or something. Just what a wonderful... I camped down at Emerson here recently. The park just looks amazing, and what a wonderful park. Like your department does such a great job, and we should be really proud of it. Like, it is a wonderful park. Beautiful.
Good, that's good to hear. The long weekend, the park was full. It was overflowing, and we got lots of kudos that weekend because I think Chris even made up some extra stalls to accommodate a few people that, yeah, she felt sorry for. They came in with a load of kids and had nowhere to go, so So I think we made a few brownie points that weekend. And I also like to say at Rolling Hills at the cemetery, I think we also made some good friends there. We were mowing there one time, and there was a couple ladies weed whipping around the headstones, and a couple of our girls decided to go and help them. So yeah, I think that went over quite well, and everybody's quite happy with us taking over the cemetery portion of it. The maintenance anyways.
It would appear we might need all the friends we can get, so I'm happy to hear that. A question, has there been lots of rain at Emerson or not?
Yes, the last little while
They got wet, okay.
Yes.
Good.
I think it's like Gem. Seems like it's got a little more rain this year than everybody else.
Yeah, I just wondered if it was a dry spot, actually. It just looked so, looking across the river as you approached 36, and it's been a spotty season of rain, but that's good to know, good to hear.
Yeah.
Any other questions for young Will? Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Do I need to shut this off?
Thanks, Will. All right, I think we can just carry on in a sort of ordinary manner. We have public hearings in a while. We have a delegation also. Cole will be here. So item 11.3, Alberta Assessors Association concerns.
Kevin is going to be coming in as well to discuss this, but the information that is before council has been prepared by the Assessors Association. It just expresses concerns with, it seems to be a direction that has been taken by the government of Alberta and a lack of consultation that has been a trend towards a lack of consultation on critical issues. This particular item, I think, is somewhat connected as well to a couple of other items that are also on the agenda, and we'll be engaging some discussion on today as well. And I guess just wanting to bring this to council's attention, if there's some discussion that you want to have about the bigger issue, or if you want to just focus on this specific item, I guess it is here for council to consider.
So, Lane, this is brand new information, sort of, that we've just received from the Assessors Association in the last while.
Correct. This was just circulated by the association, and it just raises concerns about the lack of consultation that is taking place on significant issues that impact municipalities when it comes to the assessment function.
And RMA has done some work on it with, like they reference documents. So they're just basically giving us information, wanting us to be aware of this, and not suggesting action or...
Well, I think in raising concerns, it provides an opportunity for councils across Alberta to consider actions that could be taken to address the issues that are raised. And like I say, it has, I think, direct connection to some of the issues that have been brought forward by Lac St. Anne council as well, where they're feeling a need for additional education and interaction with the rural MLAs across the province. I don't think that the RMA is unaware of these issues by any means, and I think that the association is probably doing what they can to make sure that there is information that is being made available, and it's just a question of whether or not there are additional things that can be done at the government level, at the provincial government level, to address the issues that have been raised by the Assessors Association and the bigger issue about just engaging with and consulting with municipalities.
When Al was here, I wasn't at that meeting. Was there any discussion about assessment at that particular time with RMA? No? Well, it's certainly become front and center, I'd say, in the last little while. People have questions about it, or? Kevin, did you join us, please, at the table? And there's, like, the assessment year modifiers has been a problem for a couple of years now. We've just sort of been, Lane's talked a little bit about it and is trying to, get a bit of a understanding of it all. Certainly, I think council is aware that there's been some action taken of recent that is a troubling trend. Hopefully it isn't a trend. You turn your mic on, please. So I guess we have the 6 pages of information that you've received that you've passed on to us about the consultation gaps, and if there's something that you feel, any recommendations or whatever, we're certainly happy to be put on our political hat to see what we can do.
Yeah, I don't know, how much did you go over that?
Not a lot.
Not a lot? Okay.
No.
Is it okay then if I just point out some things? Okay. So basically this letter comes from the association to us, and it explained, the three
Can everyone
things.
hear, Kevin?
Maybe
you can speak. Yeah, we have trouble hearing unless you get close to the mic.
All right.
Perfect.
I don't want to bust the speakers here. Okay. Oh no, you can't take pictures. So there's three identifying problems that we've, as an association, have seen over the last few years. So the lack of consultation, lack of transparency, and assessment year modifier. What the association did for us is put this letter together, and under lack of consultation, I just want to point out that no impact analysis was provided to municipalities so that you could adjust your budgets. So that was done in the past, so what's changed? Why now? And it states, assessment modifier wasn't given any information on that, the value of the land at the well site, the valuation of the railway, coal bed methane wells, and the calculation process for well depth. There was some information that we got from the Canadian Taxpayers Association, which is CPTA. Some of you might know that association. It says that it appears that industry representatives were consulted on the assessment year modifiers and the value of the land at well sites. The newsletter reported that the industry representatives have been part of this consultation process for machinery equipment, model review, and the well model review, but we weren't asked to be part of that. Why, we still don't know why. There we had one assessor who kind of appointed himself as a spokesman for us, and he approached the government and asked, well, can I be part of this, and can I get some information? And they basically closed the door on him and said, no, you can't be part of this.
Kevin, what's the timeline on that? Like, when would that have been? Months ago?
Basically a year or two ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of when this assessment year modifier thing started coming out, he was asking, well, and I can talk about that one at the last paragraph. So the second troubling trend, they call it, is the lack of transparency. So in the past, when there was large assessment shifts, an impact analysis was provided to municipalities. So if anything was coming down the line that really was going to affect municipalities, you would know about it. And when you knew about it, it wasn't going to be like 2 months down the road, you better get this done. It was like for next year or the year later. What we said, or what the association said, is we find it unfortunate and concerning that this is not being done with the recent changes. We feel strongly that municipalities should be provided with the same information that they provide to the property owners, and that municipalities should have a minimum as a read-only access, at least. The read-only access would allow municipalities to view the details of their assessment, enter search queries, and print the results. As an assessor, when the machinery and equipment on the oil field was transferred to them, I guess going on about 3 years now, I have access to the information on that, but yet I can only read only. I can't print it myself, which us as assessors say, well, that doesn't make any sense either. Why can't we print it on our end so that we have some kind of record? We only can read it. So it just seems very strange.
Follow that rule?
Sorry?
Do you really follow that rule?
Follow the rule?
Yeah. Do you follow it? Like you only read, you don't print? Okay, I just...
Are we talking about killing trees?
Yes, thank
I know, Kevin, printing is not his thing either, but I'm a little bit old school still. So yeah, we just, like, why can't it be more transparent, and why can't we be consulted on these things? So the last thing is, of course, the assessment year modifiers. You said you talked about that already a little bit, or?
I think it's been one that came up, has come up in the past for municipalities.
Yeah, and for us as assessors, this has been, I would say, more of the bigger one. So example, the association in the letter said that in 2017, municipalities were provided the AYM report, assessment year modifier report, recommending increases of 10.22% for pipeline and 18.39% for wells. These recommended changes to the AYMs were not adopted by the minister, and the AYMs were frozen at previous years. Why would you do that? We were all shocked as assessors. And of course, that decision has significant impact on the whole assessment. Like 10% on $1 million is quite substantial on the assessment side of it. And then just lastly from this letter, actually, yeah, just the one paragraph, like we're supposed to be doing things at the value. What is the value? So ad valorem, which is actual value model, adopted by most taxing authorities, which is us, is transparent and provides for a generally understood process fee for political influence. With respect to assessment year modifiers, this has historically meant that construction costs are directly reflected in the changes. The decisions of the last 2 years, however, have created artificial values that address the concerns of the oil and gas sector only, and municipalities are forced to accept undervalued assessments in a rising cost economy. So in other words, if we have a low economy, the costs still seem to go up. I mean, just for example, to build a house, the prices don't seem to go down, they go up on a square footage basis. This has been compounded year over year and is creating imbalance in a system that should be fair and equitable. The resulting reduction of taxes for the oil and gas industry has forced municipalities to shift the shortfall to other property owners, including residential, farms, and other Alberta businesses. I just kind of wanted to give you an example of what happened in one case. In a central Alberta municipality, there was a oil field construction company that was building a tank farm, which is your very large tanks, the 750 barrel ones. They put in 4 of those 750 barrel oil tanks. They put in, they added the meters and the sensors and all the transmitters, connecting pipe. They made a berm around it. So the assessor said, hey, what was the cost on that? And so he said, the guy that built it said that his materials, labor, and overhead was that $1 million. And so he said, can you send me a copy? He's got a copy of all the costs. So right now, we are using government assessment manuals, which are based on costs. For the metal buildings is a 2001 cost, and the oil field machinery equipment is a 2005 cost, modified every year. But equipment in the oil field has changed substantially in the last, either 18 or 15 years. We have not seen an updated cost manual. So getting back to that cost that the assessor got from the company to build that tank farm, he ran it through our cost manual, which is 15 years old. The assessment manual came up at about $300,000 to $350,000. That's all we could do. Then with depreciation, there's what we call the fixed and immediate depreciation of 25%. And so immediately comes off of new equipment. Right away, the industry gets a 25% reduction. And then also there's a Alberta regulated factor, which us as assessors call that the Alberta Advantage factor. That's another 23%. So when we worked out everything through the cost manual, the actual assessment that could be taxable on that tank farm that was $1 million was $260,000 assessment. So basically we're saying, well, why is the industry complaining about anything? We're more than fair. And the other side of it is why hasn't the government provided us newer manuals with all this extra equipment that's not listed in the manual that needs to be assessed? So here again, it goes back to association letter saying transparency and all that. Did it start with the previous government? I think so. And then the current, not the current government, but prior to the current, kind of made things worse for us, I guess. And so another thing that the association had said is when dealing with the wells and the well sites, all the information, so there's some of these closed meetings that we're not allowed to be at. Some of these, what we find out trickling is that some of these are going to still be more impacted for municipalities. And what the association found out is here we are halfway through 2019, and some of these things are going to be already in effect for 2020, but we don't know. And so here we are. Thank you.
It's all municipal affairs that determines taxation, or is involved with it, I should say.
Municipal affairs, yes, yeah. Yeah, because they look after the linear, which is our wells and pipelines, and then now they have the designated industrial property, which is part of linear, but also includes the machinery equipment and your railway also. Yeah, so any
The
other
big stuff.
Well, that's it. Like, I don't know if you've touched on it, Kevin, or what, but like this county is the one that's affected the most because of the shallow well. Like, shallow wells are approximately under 1,500 meters deep. Well, we've got thousands of them here in the county, and we're the ones affected by it most. Cypress County is the next one that's affected, but their mill rate's a little lower, so the tax dollars is about $1 million less. But still, why wasn't this council consulted on that prior? You know, because you've already got a budget, and now you're supposed to find the money. It's very sad.
I'm just going to make a comment here. I think that the government is trying to give the oil industry assistance, but they don't want to lower their revenues. So they're taking it from the municipalities. It's easy to do. Nobody raises a stink. And nobody, let's face it, we've got 7,500 people in our county.
Yep.
Nobody listens to us. This is another reason for amalgamation, in my opinion. But that is true, and you'll go to Cypress County. What's the population there?
Yeah.
There's no people here. It's easy to hit us.
Yeah.
And there's no political backlash.
Yeah. And sorry.
Well, my question goes back to what you mentioned with the updated manuals, and the question is when it comes to a resolution at our RMA, has there been any thing along these lines that's pointed that out to the government that this is necessary for assessors and for municipalities to be able to collect their proper taxes? And so I don't know, like I'm not a big fan of resolutions. I think that we have way too many, but I'm just curious whether any of that, do you guys recall any of those, like an updated manual, update assessment manual being asked for through our RMA membership? And maybe that's something we should consider.
At that level, at the RMA level?
And you have to be really careful, because don't forget who would never like those manuals to ever change, right? So I think that's part of the reason the government's probably left them all alone, because if you start to update one, you should be updating all. Correct?
Including the residential one. Yeah.
I mean, and agricultural, everything.
Well, that's it too, yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't remember, back to your question, Brian, I don't remember RMA stuff. But I think the RMA should be involved in, well, they have been involved to some.
Yes, they have, yeah. And the AUMA also.
Yeah. So this is basically for our information and for our understanding, and the timing is excellent. Yeah. Other questions for Kevin? Or Kevin, sorry.
Oh, sorry. just one more comment. In our spring Assessor Association conventions, we have we call it the Bear Pit session with Municipal Affairs, and we're constantly bringing up these things, so it's not like they haven't heard it before.
Okay.
So
they're very aware of it.
They're very aware of, what's happening with the manuals, how come, and we get kind of the standard answers.
Kevin, would it be fair to say that the meeting that we attended with the minister, that they indicated that this action that they were taking, did you get the feeling that it was only this one time that they would do it this quickly?
Yeah, I think, one of the points that they made at that meeting is that this is not a conservative principle to do something like this, and that it was something that needed to be addressed by the former government. That wasn't, and it was a one-off, is my read from them. But
Yeah.
it's still a scary trend to pick one sector. And there's no doubt, nobody cannot argue that gas has been hit extremely hard over the last 10 years. So, the assessments, anything that's regulated, in my view, isn't fair. And all kinds of them are regulated. I agree with Reeve Douglas that you have to be careful what you ask for, because if you ask for updated assessment manuals, there may be some huge impacts throughout ratepayers and people that won't like it, because a shift is never acceptable, whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense.
I guess what would be nice is if your involvement as assessors would continue.
Yeah.
At least then you would have the knowledge and the influence within.
Yeah. And we're fighting for the municipalities, right? And
Right.
Because it's not fair. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Appreciate you coming, giving this to us today, Kevin, and coming here. Other questions for Kevin? And it's a tricky area to understand.
Yeah, there's...
Like, who wants to do this work, Kevin?
Me?
And we're glad that you do.
It's one of my passions.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it is. It is. So, thank you. And
Thanks very much.
I think this is going to tie into much further and bigger discussion in my mind as to some of the things going on right now for municipalities. So we'll be continuing this discussion today. You're around, are you, if we have more questions, or? You're here today? Okay. Thank you. Which takes us on to item 11.4, which is the shallow gas tax reduction.
Yeah, so this is just an update of information. I think it was just about 11 p.m. on the Friday of the long weekend, I got an email that asked for the Reeve and CAO to be up at the legislature on Tuesday, following the stat holiday in Edmonton. So they invited 15 of the biggest impacted municipalities, and most were there. Not all were there, but most were there. And basically what they had said at the meeting was that there was going to be an adjustment, and that they've asked that municipal councils pass a tax cancellation for this year for those monies that have been collected, equal to 35%, and that they would provide a grant to cover this year, because they realize that programs and budgets and everything has been levied, but subsequent years it's going to be up for the municipality to figure out how to balance that. And we're still waiting on the exact numbers for the County of Newell. Kevin is right, we are number one in the province impacted by this. We anticipate $3 million and close to $3 million in taxes overall, and close to $2 million of municipal impact. So if one takes a Calgary philosophy and how they manage, they collect a pool of money from the non-residential sector, and when those assessments shift and the vacancies downtown, the other non-res picks up the balance of that. And there's all kinds of different tax policy scenarios in terms of how they handle that, but that's going to be our tough discussion is that that's a big hit, and how does it balance out? Do we cut services? Is there things that get cut out because of that in terms of road maintenance or capital expenditure or whatever? So I think budget discussion this year will be a little more intense with regards to how to balance that. And the scary thing for me is this just the start of something bigger in terms of all this sector, because everybody knows that oil and gas is well, it's the reason that we have the expenses that we do. We certainly wouldn't need the roads and the values that we put into you know the municipal services component if it was just for ratepayers that were out in acreages. But industries has dictated what we've needed to spend, and industry's appreciated it. So I don't know if industry's going to be, the oil and gas sector is going to be cut in half, or if something happens where they pull linear from this municipality. I've said it many times. I don't want to be the person that tries to balance the books for that, because we have a huge reliance on it. I mean, 80% of our revenue is from non-res and industry. So that's the high and low of it. I mean, Reeve Douglas can maybe talk a little more on the politics side of it, but it's obviously very political, and it's done behind the scenes, right? So nobody knew anything about it.
I don't really know what to say, except it was sort of a shocking turn of events, and it was good Kevin and I went. Cypress weren't there, Wheatland wasn't there, Tabor wasn't there. So there were lots of communities that weren't there. Not that it made a difference, but I think the fact that we were there was important. It was a small meeting because it was just the two people from municipalities. There were a lot of government people there. Al was there from RMA, of course, and they've been working, the RMA had been working, and I think they sort of felt that they had a bit of a victory because they did get the cushion this year of being able to hold back the municipal taxes equal to what we're going to lose. So that would come out of general revenue to replace, but next year that won't. And I think at one time that probably, they weren't going to do that even. They were just going to say, this is the way it is. But I think the RMA worked hard to make sure that we had this year's budget to finish up prior. So I guess that was a bit of an accomplishment, but overall it didn't seem to take the tarnish off the whole thing going forward. Just the political intervention of it all. And I don't get the feeling that there's, I hope that this really helps oiling the gas industry. I guess this is shale gas. I totally hope it helps the gas industry. Why wouldn't we hope for a good, positive outcome? But it just seems like hard to believe that municipal taxation would be the final and big nail in the coffin of a company. So anyhow, questions? Anne-Marie?
Is there any recourse? Is there anything we could do? Could we say no? And like you said in your last sentence, this cannot be the nail in their coffin. If they still have CAO, CNRL CAO makes $11 million. There's got to be another way for these businesses to survive. So is there anything we could do by saying, no, we won't agree? Or was this just notification?
It was pretty much notification, but there does have to be a motion passed at this table to go along with it. Wayne?
Is there any services we can withdraw? Because they want us to reduce our rate by 1/3. And if I was in their shoes, I could see why they'd want it. But how much do we actually provide them in service that we can withdraw? Because, hey, we're going to have to find some ways to cut our budget if this goes forward further. So is there something we'll just say, well, you pay 1/3 less, you get less service from us?
Well, you can certainly, cut any type of level of services that you want, from, grading to graveling to calcium to mowing, bylaw enforcement. I mean, there's all kinds of areas that you can trim. It's just a matter of whether or not it's reasonable to trim. You know, because there has to be a certain level of service standard, I believe, and I don't think we're excess in any of that. But you know, when we get into the budget discussions, $2 million is huge. You know we've kept the budget as lean as we can for the last 3 years that I can remember, and you know it can cut into our capital spending. Maybe we defer that. Maybe we pull back our shoulder pulls and quit improving roads. Maybe we cut back on our drainage program and impact the drainage. You know, there's all kinds of areas that we can talk about, but then, you know, we have to get back to whether it's reasonable or not for ratepayers in general to do that. And I think there's always an expectation from ratepayers that municipalities provide excellent services at a real affordable price. And I think we try to meet that, so you can higher the standard or lower the standard, I guess, of your maintenance and what you do, and reduce your overall expenditures. So, I mean, if you look at, you know, what our expenditures are for the big three of wages, contract, and salaries, I mean, you're sitting in around $15 million. So you want to trim that back, it's a big impact to do so.
Other questions? Wayne?
No, what I meant was reduce the service on the shallow gas wells and stuff. I know it's going to be difficult because the same roads that they use, our residents use. So I know that is really going to be tough just to try withdraw from the oil and gas.
I think it's impossible.
Yeah, we're going to have to tighten the belt real tight.
And that's difficult because, you know, as you mentioned, the services are provided to more than one sector, right? And certainly roads and all the big expenditures are, for sure. So I don't think there's anything specific that we could reduce with regards to gas wells.
Clarence?
Well, when I read this announcement from Kevin last Tuesday, I thought, well, what's driving this? Where's government getting their information? And I've just sent all of you a natural gas advisory panel report. And it gives you an idea of what the industry really looks like. The very first statement on their executive summary, and it was done by 3 very well-known people in the oil and gas industry. Traditional markets for Alberta natural gas are oversupplied. And that's why the price is low. But when you read through this, and it's a 72-page document, and you read through some of the problems and the regulations and the problems with even the pipelines that we do have, and the political stuff that goes on, and the pulls and pushes that come from suppliers and transporters. And transporters are the pipelines, and the suppliers are your oil and gas people that actually sell it. And the fact that we are further from markets than probably our main competitors, the fact that our main competitor is now where we used to sell natural gas. Things are pretty bleak for the shallow gas market, because we not only, when you look at some of the maps, they don't even mention what they're called here as the legacy producers, because that's what we are. And that they are taxed higher than the new fields in northern and central Alberta, where there is more production per well. I think the writing was on the wall. And it's something we've been talking about all along, is our reliance on the linear as a county. And if we let markets dictate it, I'm not sure it'll ever come back in the near future, because they're talking about needing new markets, needing access to the West Coast. And quite frankly, our oil and gas industry reading this thing is in a mess. A real bloody mess. And I was quite surprised how honest these guys actually were about some of the difficulties they're having. And I don't understand it all, but I get the gist of it. So I think it's something we're going to have to live with, that we're not going to have this production that we have here in the future. I don't think there's a magic solution to those prices. They're talking about 20 cents for when they're getting $4 or $5 in the States for the same product. We're just not going to be competitive. So I think that hit the government, and they probably realize it, but a lot of it has to do with some of their regulations also, and how they organize the industry, how it's controlled, and it's hard to move forward on different things. Certainly the pipeline situation is a problem that we have. I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's the new reality we're going to be facing, either brought on by this particular, I think it just woke everybody up with this particular action by our provincial government. My main concern on this action is that it actually encourages production that is not sustainable. And just the way I read it, it just basically makes the problem even worse until you deal with some of the other issues that we have and why they're not profitable. Because when we were getting $3, $4 for natural gas as producers, there wasn't a problem. But today there is. And until that price goes up, it's not going to go away. So I encourage you to read it, because it really gives you an idea. It certainly opened my eyes on how this industry is run. It's the Wild West. And nobody can really get a control of it, including our provincial government.
Oh yeah, public hearings. We can go on with this conversation, but we do have public hearings at 11:30 in it. So we will put it on hold for now and come back. It all ties in probably with the meeting requests from Lake St. Anne and many other things that are going on right now. So we will talk about this more, but in the meantime, let's get a motion to move into public hearing, please. Tracy moves us in. Thank you, Tracy. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So, what's on the go today? Former hamlet of Millicent, some land in there. Go ahead, Maria.
So the purpose of this is to close and sell portions of the road in Millicent that are not being used as road allowances any longer. So the purpose is to close and sell and consolidate with the adjacent landowner. There was no concerns from any of the referrals that were sent. Internal circulations didn't, there was no one who had any comments or concerns. Access to any of the other lands is not impeded by these closures. And then the value of the land the land is valued at $2,500 per acre, and it's approximately 0.39 acres that will be bought by the adjacent landowner.
Questions? No questions? Pretty straightforward. All right, let's get a motion to move out of camera then. Anne-Marie, all in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Taking us to the bylaw 1853-19 for the road closure and sale. First reading of this motion. All in favor? Oh no, who moved it? Guess I could, but I would prefer not to. Lionel, thanks, Lionel. Lionel makes the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. That's it. Thank you. So we'll go to Cole because he's here, may as well, rather than keep him waiting. We hope over the months that sometimes you get to do it early, sometimes you get to wait and listen to us. So hopefully it all balances out, Cole. But we'll pop over to item 12.1. Thank you, Clarence. Item 12.1 on page 3 of our agenda. And welcome.
Thank you very much, Reeve Douglas and councillors. We'll start off with the Hamlet distribution and systems and wastewater systems. So we had Cummins come out and do the annual servicing on all the county Hamlet's backup generators. So that was completed and everything went well with those. We had the flow meters in Bazzano, Rosemary and Dutchess, and Patricia. So the first three don't pertain to the county per se, but Patricia's was looked at as well. They were checked and calibrated and certified as accurate because we do use them for metering purposes for the amount of water that we deliver to those facilities. So it's kind of important that they're all reading correctly. So we had that done. We also finished flushing the distribution systems at Lake Newell Resort and Tilly. So those have all been complete as part of our spring maintenance package that we do on those. Rural water, we're seeing about 2 hookups or so and about 10 emitter flow valve issues per month on average. So that hasn't changed. Wastewater collection, we had all the Hamlet lift stations cleaned out. We do that twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, just to make sure that they are operating normally, and that was all taken care of just recently. But we did have an alarm come in on one of the pumps at Lake Newell Resort as a high temperature alarm, so that happens every once in a while. So we pulled it out and cleaned it up and sent it away to Southern Rewind to be repaired. So there's only one pump in service there right now. But that's normal, we've done that before. They usually last about between 5 and 10 years on average before we have to get work done on them. So it's nothing new, wasn't unexpected, but we do have that one away for servicing. And we did have a transmission line leak just prior to entering the distribution pump house in Rainier. So that happened right underneath the highway, in the casing underneath the highway. So it was in an oddball spot. So it took a little bit of time. But basically we notified all the residents in Rainier that there'd be lack or no water for a while. And like I said, it took 2 days to complete it, and everything's back and running normally. So it went pretty smoothly, all things considered. So it was a good repair. And that's the extent of my report. If you guys have any questions.
Brian?
I can't let him escape without a question. So, Rolling Hills, that leak has that been fixed, or did you even have that in your last month's report? I don't recall.
I actually was gone last month, so it's been a couple months since I've reported. But it's actually dropped down to almost non-detectable. There is a little bit of water in the ditch there, but not very much at all. According to my operators' reports, they check on it daily. And there again, I believe that Jeff is going to look at doing that whole intersection. So as long as there's no major pressing need to get it fixed right now, he's going to do it all in one big shot kind of thing.
Any other questions? Kevin?
So Cole, that leak at Rainier, what caused that, do you know?
They couldn't even find it. Like usually if there's a crack or something, you can see that. But when they pulled that section out, there'll even sometimes be a clean spot, basically where the water's leaking out. It'll clean the pipe because it was all pretty dirty. But they couldn't even see it there. So they're thinking it was just a faulty, it was a small leak, but it accumulated over time. And it was probably just one of the gaskets on one of the joints. So yeah, Jeff and I were out there and took a look at it and couldn't, between Brooks Asphalt and us two, we couldn't see anywhere that was obvious. But there again, too, it was in a crazy spot of all that whole line from the number 36 all the way in there. The place it does leak happened to be in the casing underneath the highway. So it's kind of unfortunate.
Like under 36 or 87?
870, I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
3.
873.
It crosses, so
Yes.
across the highway into
Yeah,
Rainier?
going from north to south into the pump house.
Okay.
Because it's in the north ditch following parallel to it from the 36. And then it crosses underneath it, and then underneath the bus road, and underneath your guys' grader compound, and into the pump house.
Any other questions? No? Sounds good, Cole. Just a question, when you mentioned the thing at Lake Newell, the alarm or pump or whatever it was, heat related? Is it to do with the weather outside heat related?
No, because they're a submersible pump, it's all in an enclosed casing. The motor, the pump itself is all one, and you lower it down into the lift station, and then it has internal sensors inside. So if it's starting to fail, it'll throw a temperature alarm, or it'll also have a sensor if it starts leaking and it gets moisture in it. So if one of those two alarms kind of come up and the pump trips, you know that it's kind of on its last legs, so you pull it and send it and get it redone. So that's what we're doing right now.
Good. All right. Oh, Clarence?
So there's 2 pumps there.
Yes, there's redundancy built in.
So how long are we down to 1?
The last time it was a little longer than we wanted. If memory serves, it was about 5 years ago when we had the other one sent away, and it took about 3 months for them to finish. But usually their turnaround time is about a month and a half.
So if they both happen to go,
yes.
What's our option?
If they both happen to go, then we have to get hydrovacs to site, and then we'd have to get something down there to pump in the interim. But there again, you're kind of, the reason why you have 2 is in case one does go down. The likelihood of 2 going down at the same time, if it was any higher percentage, we'd have 3 down in there, right?
Don't say it.
No, I never said it, but if we were worried about it, there'd be 3 in there kind of thing, so. No, it's fingers crossed.
There has to be a cutoff point where.
Yeah.
How many extras should we have?
No, we would have to definitely deal with that as if it came up.
There would be options at that.
Yes, for sure. But unfortunately, those 2 pumps are different than all the other ones. But that's not to say that you couldn't, get something else in the interim. We could get something out of Calgary pretty quick.
I guess I'm putting on my NRSC hat, but somewhere along the line, you won't fix them.
As long as it's motor related, it's pretty easy.
Fixable?
It's fixable to rewind the motor. It's not that big of a deal. And then even the pumps are rebuildable, like with impellers and stuff like that.
These obviously aren't just the normal little pumps. Trying to picture this pump in my mind. All right. Thank you, Cole.
You're welcome.
You bet. Just a reminder that just before we break for lunch, CNRL is going to be here for these check presentations along with, not Vince, what's his name? Patrick from Tilly and Ray from Patricia and Tina is coming from the village of Dutchess. Anyhow, no one else. I see Tina out there. Oh, Patrick's here too. Okay. Well, you know what? We can just go on and talk a little bit about this letter from Lac Saint Anne, item 11.5 that we're at. I just want to say that I get concerned when we have an organization that's provincial and that all of a sudden we also have Foothills Little Bow. They all have their own division that they can bring forward all these things. And now they want to have another set of meetings. Does that bother you guys? I think there's more going on in their area than maybe we know about, or I don't know, but I'm quite willing to accept this as information or respond to them that we feel that we have enough provincial representation and our zone representation. And I think more important than they want to meet with MLAs, more important right now, I think it would be to get our MLA in the same room with Cyprus. I mean, she should be horrified at what's going on within her constituency. It's huge. So that, to me, would be a much more purposeful focus than this letter. But any other comments or thoughts on it? Brian.
Yeah, when you have an association that we are represented by, to me this diminishes your confidence in that organization, and I don't feel that way at all. I think our RMA board is aware, they're engaged, they're an advocate for us, and if we go outside of that scope, I don't think we're doing ourselves any benefits. It's just fragmenting something that shouldn't be fragmented. I agree. I think that if anything, we should be trying hard, if we're not already, trying to have our own MLA involved in this process, and at least if she isn't aware, to help her come to our meetings or help her to get a better understanding of how big an impact it is to our county. I think that's far more important.
Other comments? So, should we respond or just ignore it, or I guess it's not polite to ignore. Wayne?
I think we should take your suggestion, maybe send them a letter and tell them that we believe that, like you said, we're satisfied with the groups we already got, and we're confident in RMA that they're looking after our interests, and that'd be the end of it.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation, but find somebody else to dance with.
That's a good one.
Okay. We will make sure that they get that information so they're not waiting on the County of Newell to be a part of their participation. Is everybody here? No. We better wait on them. We could do something. So this would be great to do right now. 11.6, appointment of Director of Emergency Management. Very fitting, because who knows, there might be big, conflict over this or something. He's here. All right. Lane.
So with Keith Martin's retirement, he was the Director of Emergency Management. The next agenda item actually is going to be dealing with what we're proposing is on an ongoing basis beyond the retirement of Keith, but for the time being, what we're asking council to do is proceed with the appointment of Deputy Fire Chief Stuart Luchis from the City of Brooks Fire Department as the county's Director of Emergency Management.
Any questions about this? What's going on, everybody? I think we're pretty aware of it, but we didn't plan it that you would be here to hear this proclamation or anything, Stuart, but just so happened it's next on our agenda. Anne-Marie?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Anne Marie makes the motion to appoint Stuart as our Director of Emergency Management. And any discussion, questions, all in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. No Jim yet? Oh, okay. I don't know if there's a... Hey, let's go to item 1110. I'm just trying to find some quick... They're here. Okay. We can still do item 1110. I know it. It's a proclamation for National Drowning Prevention Week, July 21st to 27th. And we do have a lot of water for Southern County, so I think this is a good one, Anne-Marie.
And I struggled with this one because we always have to prevent drownings. We don't need to have a special week for it. So no, I'm not going to make this one.
I just think they want it pointed out because it's summer and it's more apt to happen, perhaps. If someone wants to make the motion, it doesn't matter to me. Oh, Wayne's going to make the motion. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. All right. Welcome. We were just doing a few items on the agenda that we could get through waiting, and it's great to have you here. Welcome, gentlemen, everybody. Pardon me? Perfect. So, who's doing the... Or Brian, you know what's going on here?
CNRL approached Newell 911 and in regards to our new AFRAX radio purchases, and they wanted to help. And they wanted to help in the communities that they have a presence. And I was sort of a window dressing, I guess, on the sidelines. There was mostly all the discussion was with Keith, and I think Kevin and Stuart have been part of that too. And anyways, we reached out to CNRL to see how they wanted to proceed with this great idea about helping our fire departments with their communication program. And so they were grateful enough for fire chiefs to be here, plus CNRL to do the presentation. So thank you very much for your generosity, first of all.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, just I guess from our side is we appreciate working within the communities. You guys always been supporting us as well. This time we usually come here asking for something. This time we're giving, but it is part of what we do, and we need it to be successful. And it's just a good thing to do. And it's just that we're in the area, and we want to be here, and it's good for us and for the counties.
And we very much appreciate it. Our fire departments, we're extremely proud of all the volunteer efforts and the coordination of our staff with our fire departments. So yes, very important function for all of us. We were all pretty excited when it rained recently because it looked pretty scary out there for a long time. So thank you to everyone from CNRL for the participation. We really do appreciate it. And Brian was the one that teed this up. So Brian, if you want to, where did those checks go?
I think what we were planning is that the fire chiefs, we have 2 different checks, and there's 4 altogether, just so we're clear. There was Newell 911, correct me if I'm wrong, City of Brooks, and then Patricia and Tilly. So we'll do separate ones for Tilly and Patricia, and then if we can just, I don't know if you want to hold up a check it doesn't have Newell 911 or City of Brooks on it, but do you want to do those separately, you guys, or just... because you are here today, so we'd like to honor that anyway. So, okay, where do you want it, Sandra? Outside? Okay. Would you like to? I don't know if you suggest adjourning for lunch. Okay.
And it is lunchtime, and everyone's invited to participate. If you want to join us for lunch, which is in that room, and Sandra will line you up out there and listen to her because she will tell you what to do.
And I threw, Jim, just so you know, I threw Molly under the bus. I said, anytime you're bringing money, Molly will be in a picture, so.
I don't have to be in this picture. Okay. Overvoted. And so, Brian and Sandra, you can get organized, get people, yep. Okay, we will recess till what time, folks? 1:45, 11:40, or 12:45? Okay, 12:45, we'll be back.